two things on the agenda tonight, the 2022 LWCF and bylaws. So I guess I'll turn it over to Larry and Steve. Do you guys have any updates, anything to add since the last time? Or can you give us a summary of where we're at?
Yeah, just kind of give you a brief summary of where we stand. The phase 2 project, including a year-round restroom, 2 picnic shelters, 18 parking stalls, and sidewalks, was included in a bid package that we received 5 bids for on June 15th. From those bids, the apparent low bidder was Herner Construction. Out of those, we had one, after reviewing all of the bids, we had one that we determined to be non-responsive, meaning that they didn't submit all the required information as part of that. And that would be your second low bidder, Infinity Group. The things that they did not provide in their bid that was required was one, evidence of authority to do business in the state. They did not provide a license number or evidence otherwise. They used a different form than what was required for the certification, one of the certifications for the LWCF grant. Those were the two main things on that. So at this point, that's kind of in a nutshell the last month or so for this project and where we stand now. And as I understand, it has not been awarded to anyone.
Would you, I'm out of state, I don't have all my paperwork with me. Would you run through those dollar amounts real quick on the bids?
I'll go from lowest to highest. So your lowest bidder was Herner Construction at $1,020,460. $1,020,460. Second lowest bidder was Infinity Group. And their bid amount was $1,087,725. $1,087,725. Your third bidder was Flowmaster Construction, and their bid was $1,097,490.45. That's $1,097,490.45.
Are you seeing that on your screen?
Yes, thank you.
Fourth bidder then is Bruner Construction, $1,124,220. And your fifth bidder was Royal Construction, $1,139,000. The design professional's opinion of cost was $960,000.
Okay, thank you. So I think the way we left it last time was basically we as a board needed time to consider and look through things. As I personally have thought some about it, so I guess to back up just a little bit, we are not required to accept the low bid. We can accept any bid so long as we have justification for why we bypass any given bid for cost reasons. Is that Steve Rasmussen and Larry Steve? Do you all agree with that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
We are not required to accept the low bid. We can accept any bid so long as we provide justification for why we bypass a lower cost bid.
Right, you accept the best bid, and so the best bid can be based on what different criteria you have.
I believe that the grant related language says lowest and best, or lowest and most responsive bid. I'd have to check, but I believe that's something along those lines is what it says.
Lowest and most responsive.
Okay, so on the grant side, So they do specify.
Let me see if I can pull that up and I'll go, give me a minute.
Okay,
Yeah, that may be.
What would be the definition of most responsive?
Uh,
I would want to know that. Is it just that we reached out to them and they responded? Is that considered responsive?
well, you've got six bids, one of which was not responsive because they didn't submit all the required forms. So now you have 5 responsive bidders, so, you would have to probably provide some justification of why you're going to select somebody that wasn't the lowest. Is it, obviously, we're gonna probably get into this conversation. You weren't happy with the work that was done from phase 1, so can't move to 2 because that was not responsive, so you're moving to 3. Is a review of their work, previous projects, something like that could, justify responsive. So I'm gonna let Larry go pull the LWCF guidelines and we can read them to you. So while we're waiting, I just wanted to make sure that everyone got to see the information that was sent out via email on what phase 2 was, the overall schedule that we followed, what the plan is, which Larry described earlier. And then some illustrations of how it would look. And then I believe you got to review material selections later in the month of March. And then I believe you all voted on the materials of the building and selecting those, the roofing materials, natural light options, signage and graphics. Pretty unanimous there. Picnic shelters, look and character. And then we had sort of pictures of what was done in phase 1 as it would relate to phase 2. Did everyone get to see that? Is that the email that you got? Okay, good.
And I forwarded the link with the full plans and everything else and the cost estimate on it also.
Yeah. Okay, Larry.
Okay.
On those picnic shelters, was there a reason like we went with like that double roof style or like with that raised roof style? I think when we initially looked at those, they were going to price them both ways.
We showed some options. This one kind of stuck, as I recall.
Do what? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, this one's the one that we've shown all along.
With the raised roof.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought there was some discussion at one meeting we had talked about, was there a big price difference in that, or would it be cheaper or anything to go with our normal roof? Or
If you can investigate other options,
Yeah,
if you need to reduce some cost, it would have to happen after the bid was awarded
yeah,
as a change order, as a deduct.
you can choose to select the contractor and negotiate. It is also in your ability. Change materials, change, shelter types or requests, where the contractor can save money.
Yeah, and like I was curious too. I know on the south side, I just wanted to make sure it was okay design wise. Like we had talked about putting a concession stand someday on that south side. Does it matter where that Chase door entrance is or not for that?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't something that would be in the way someday if we decided to do that.
No, yeah, it was something we talked about.
Okay.
Yep. So I have the language from the LWCF grant regarding awarding of bids. It states contracts must be awarded to the lowest responsible and responsive contractors or suppliers who have the ability to perform successfully under the terms and conditions of the contract. Prior approval must be obtained from GMS before awarding the contract.
So that,
Basically, lowest and most responsible. Once you've identified a person, then we'd submit that along with the bid itself and the bid tabulation to the state for review and approval. And then after that, it would go to council. That's my understanding.
so based on that language, it sounds like there's not a lot of flexibility. I mean, unless we say that they're not capable of performing the contract.
Yeah, Tim, it just said HDM.
Yes, and you know,
Is it on?
it has happened before where somebody has gone with not the lowest bidder, but the second lowest bidder because of a variety of reasons. So it's not,
Okay, I don't know why.
if you have an argument for doing so, they'll understand. Ought to be a pretty good argument, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, they're looking for the lowest, most responsive bidder.
Matt, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, is that issue an issue of the grant, Steve? Is that what you're saying, that you have to take the low bid?
Well,
Is that-
lowest and most responsive.
Okay. All right, and that's a condition of the grant. We would understand that. Normally in city bids, you wouldn't do that, but if that's a condition of the grant, I understand that.
Correct.
Okay, Tim, I'm still working off of the tablet, and that'll be fine.
So am I correct in assuming that
Okay,
there
good.
was
Watch for a call
references
for me.
or prior work,
I
anything
don't
like
think I'll
that
call
for the
back
other,
and
for all of the bidders?
I'll call you.
We have not called references for others.
But I mean, they were all submitted.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll say I wasn't completely tickled with the phase one performance. And so I mean, I think it's in our best interest to evaluate the others. I mean, it's a $75,000 plus jump at least if we do move on to someone else. Do you guys have experience with the other three, with Flowmaster, Bruner, or Royal?
Flowmaster is doing a project, one of our projects for the state of Missouri. I personally don't know what the experience has been, but we could find out what our experience has been with them on those projects. The others, Bruner and Royal, I do not have direct experience with either of those. I've not heard either way.
And Chris had a reference from a friend who's an electrical contractor who has worked directly with Bruner and said they're a wonderful company. I don't know that anybody's heard anything about Royal. I don't know anything about any of them personally. So that, I guess that's where it's impossible for me to make a informed decision without any information about the others. It becomes just a yes or no on Herner. And given that language in the grant, I think it would have to be a pretty compelling no to if we did say that. And we have, you had told me earlier today, Larry, 60 days from June 15th. So the bids are valid until August 15th. Is that correct?
That's how the bid form reads,
Okay.
60 days.
So what's everybody think? Do we want to move on this? I guess I'm coming into tonight. I was leaning more towards let's investigate references and have a little better feel of what the alternatives potentially are. I feel like that's a little bit more restricted now based on that language that Larry just read. What do the rest of you think?
I agree with you on that statement. And I know, yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% unhappy with what happened with phase one. I just think that there was more communication that could have happened that I think could have avoided some issues that we are now discussing. But yeah, I don't know how, because the only one I know or have heard anything else about is the same one as you, the Bruner. But I don't know how we skip over another one to get to that one when we don't know, like we don't know anything about them. So.
And I mean, like you said, it's not like phase one was a complete and utter disaster.
No.
I mean, I've heard lots of good things about the park. There's being on the inside of any project, you're going to know about all the negatives where a lot of people may not. But it's not like it was a complete and utter disaster. At least they didn't build the concessions building upside down.
And honestly, I wouldn't label it as a disaster at all. I think, like you said, I think it's beautiful. I think we can be happy with it. I just want to make sure moving forward that any issues that could come from a project are discussed with everybody that needs to be discussed with.
Yeah, and I think just in the interest of being good stewards of the public's money, it makes sense to follow up on references and see if, I mean, same with Herner, follow up on some other projects. And if some of the issues that we had are systemic through everybody's projects, or if it was a one-off type of deal, and follow up on the rest and see.
Yeah, and we did that with first phase. We can do it again if they've provided some different references. The references that we received at that time that I called and investigated were all good references. But we certainly can explore that.
I guess that's the way I'm leaning towards, and then take action on it at the regular meeting into this month. Does anybody object to that path?
No. I agree with you.
Let's say that
I would
again.
prefer to.
I said I agree with you. There were a lot of problems, maybe that were rushed by former managements, and we just have to do a little bit more investigating or checking, because we're running out on that deadline, right?
Yeah, we have until, you said September 15th, I believe.
August 15th.
August 15th. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do we happen to know any of like change order percentages on any of the other companies, or is that?
That's a question. We don't have that. It's a question that we typically ask as part of the reference check. And usually they give you their good references. And with any project, there's going to be some amount. It seems to me that when I asked that question, there probably was a number of change orders in their past projects. But oftentimes what I'll get a comment is, it wasn't excessive, or they were improvements that we as the owner decided to make as part of the project, enhancements, what have you. So just thinking back to a couple of years ago, having done that, there's nothing that sticks out to me that said they were a big change order company any more so than anyone else. I know Drew had some experience with them on other projects in Cameron. But you know,
Yeah, if you guys would follow up on references for everyone on this go round, just to, I mean, at the very least, just to show that we're not just diving back in for another round of the exact same thing without consideration.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Let's see, I do have some info I want to share. I've done a little bit of looking on other, like the sticker shock of the buildings is still big to me. Let me get these pulled up here. So I've done a little bit of looking on, like we had asked along the way about prefab restrooms, different options there. I just reached out to one company. You had mentioned that the prefab option is something that typically, like, you can't heat. They've said they have multiple options for heating. This is just like two recent projects that they've built. This is the public restroom company. It basically, these are buildings. They either construct them as one piece or two pieces on a 6-inch concrete slab and then ship them. And basically it gets installed just like that on site. The options for heating, they can either sheathe the whole thing in insulation and do heated concrete floors and do it that way, or the way that they typically recommend to people, and the way that makes a lot of sense to me, because of the type of construction where they're building this whole and then bringing it on site. All of the utilities run directly through the utility chase. So their recommendation is just to heat the chase, do a minimal insulation above the chase, just an electric heater in the chase itself. That keeps all of the pipes from freezing, but does not give a 65, 70 degree warm area in the middle of winter in the bathroom to encourage vagrant use or anything like that. So those are the two options that they have. And basically, talking to the rep from this company, they can build just about any type of structure. I mean, they go all the way from single units up to 15 stall units, with lots of different roof lines, lots of different other stuff. These two for a year-round restroom would be similar in cost to what we've got. His estimate was in the $450 to $550 range installed. But one of the things I had looked at also, as I was looking at this as an option, I found feasibility studies from two different cities. One of them was Denver, Colorado. I don't remember the other one for sure. I think it was Raleigh, North Carolina, in future construction of restroom buildings. And both of them found that unless you need very specifically tailored architectural design, their recommendation was to only purchase prefabricated models for price, for durability, and for minimal maintenance long term. And so that, I guess I feel like that's something we need to look at as an option, is this type of structure, especially if it's going to minimize the maintenance issue or maintenance issues long term.
So we've used
CXT.
CXT, yeah. Matt, did you check with anybody that had used a CXT restroom before? Because we've used those in a non-winterized condition before. And did you say this was how much did you say this one was from public restroom?
His estimate for a final installed was $450 to $550.
Okay, So in a non climate controlled situation or year-round situation, we've done this type of restroom from CXT, excuse me, for half that price. So the question would be, you know, how could we make it year-round? You might check into CXT restrooms.
And like I said, this was, so that's like one of the cast concrete.
Yeah, that comes on a truck. Lexington just put one in. We have one in Liberty City Park. We have one in Kearney. We've got 2 in Johnson County. The only issue there would be making it year round, so some sort of heating in the winter.
And it sounds like, so if that's a cast concrete, and talking to this guy, the rep for this company, it sounds like this is closer to traditional construction in terms of materials and style of construction. It's just built on a slab in a climate controlled environment.
Yeah,
Like basically they perfectly control their environment, all the, you know, they build it on flat level surface, etc., and then ship it. So it sounds like this company at least is more traditional construction type of building as opposed to just a cast concrete.
that's correct.
But
Yeah.
no, I did not. This is the only one I looked at. I just called the first.
Oh, they froze up. He froze up, but did others?
I'm still here.
Still here.
Okay. Well, hopefully Matt gets unfrozen. Yeah, this is something, look, I mean, as a park board, this is something that you can explore. This question came up early on in the early design phases of moving into phase 2. The question was raised, do you want to by us, do you want to use an off-the-shelf restroom
Recording
product?
stopped. Recording in progress.
Do you want to use an off-the-shelf restroom product, or do you want to tie into your architecture of your concession building at the ball complex? And you know, I think the previous staff member that you all had working with us gave indication that, you know, let's keep if we have the ability, let's go ahead and do something that matches the other restroom building. I believe you heard from the architects on our team, you know, about some of the benefits of, you know, being year round and, you know, them designing it. But, you know, this is completely, if you're able to save a lot of money, you know, this is probably something that you can consider. You can choose your contractor and ask your contractor to get pricing for different options of the prefab restroom buildings that would be similar to the plan that you have. I'm gonna have to go back and check the grant. I don't know that we were very specific. I think we just submitted a general floor plan. And whatever we would do would probably need to match that. Let me, as I'm talking, I'm gonna go see if I can't find that grant.
I dropped internet connection somewhere along the way.
Let's see if I can find that. What was submitted in that grant.
Okay. He's gonna go check him on that.
Yeah, I think I overloaded my internet connection here. We're at a campground in South Carolina at the moment. But I also looked at the shelter house buildings, and they're supposed to get back to me with all steel construction, but with a wooden frame, like with a glulam curved beam, or even with a double tiered roof like the one we've got. Total estimated installed cost for 2 buildings was under 100,000. Like I said, he's supposed to be getting back to me on steel price. Is there a reason that we went with all steel instead of wood on those?
I'd have to ask the architect. Between the architect and structural engineering.
And Steve was going to get something to return, is that
Yeah,
right?
he's going back to look at the grant, what was written in the grant. Is your goal to find something less expensive? I mean, we really don't know what the cost of that building in the bids is.
Yeah, and I'm just going based on the opinion of cost. I mean, I'm making the assumption everything's relatively proportional in there. Yeah, I mean, the goal is to get the best end product that we can. And, you know, if we get a better building for same or similar cost, if we get the same building for less cost, you know, I want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and not just saying, here's the first thing that is there and going with it.
I also think it'd be a good idea to try to use all the funds that we can to get the most that we can too. So like I agree with Matt that if we can get a really good product or get a good product at a great price, then that leaves us some more funding to do some other things that I know we've all discussed for hopefully bettering what we have out there. So
Yeah, so I guess my main purpose at this point is just making sure that we've actually evaluated all the different avenues. Over the course of these projects, I haven't always felt that way, at least from the board side.
Okay. It's just a departure from working with the architect for some time.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, part of that comes back to, and I mean, I don't know specifically where that breakdown was, but we as a board didn't see anything from between the concept and, okay, the bids are open. So there was no intermediate in there. I mean, I know you guys have been working with them for a long time, from my perspective, it feels like it was just, okay, here's your option. It's already, I mean, like I said, by the time it ever made it back to us in terms of designs, all of that sort of stuff, it was bids are open.
already, it's already done. A lot of that.
The construction drawings
Mhm.
for that plan right there. So the detailed drawings that we submit. So we took those, submitted those to Steve, who provided those to various city departments, be it Public Works or police, fire, building inspection, to review and comment. And he did that, provided us comments. I don't think there was a whole lot.
Yeah, I guess that's a spot where I would have liked to have seen the park board been one of those in that loop, which we were not.
Okay.
Agreed. I would have liked to have seen the plans a long time ago. I mean, I know they left them at City Hall at our last meeting, but I mean, I didn't have time to get to City Hall in the last week. And you sent them out to us, I think Tuesday, Matt did. So Monday or Tuesday. So that was really the first chance I got to look at them very close at all.
Yeah, and I had gotten them from Larry the end of the previous week. I was having issues with emails not sending. And that was one that I tried to send it into last week, but it didn't finally make it out until Monday or Tuesday this week. So yeah, I guess that's it's certainly some frustration from that respect. Just that, as far as we, the board, are concerned, it feels like it went from concept to, the way that I personally found out that it was out for bid is when Chris is signed up for the notifications through the city, and he texted and said, "Hey, our project's out for bid." So like that sounds like it's a breakdown on our side.
Is it typical as part of city processes for construction plans to go to boards for review? An example might be a public works project. Does that go to city council to review the construction drawings, or would they see this level typically and approve a direction for things?
Well, I'm not saying even that we needed to approve all the construction drawings and all that sort of stuff, but when the board last did anything on it, it was, we were still reconfiguring. We had the multiple different layouts. It was, we kind of piecemealed them together. I would have expected that from the board side, we saw a finished package and said, yes, this is the package we want to pursue, instead of, I felt like it was just half done. We never saw a finished package. I guess, let me put it that way, whether it be in the rendering or in any form, we never saw a finished package.
And we never saw the final cost.
And along with that, the final cost with all of that. So that's all stuff that I think that the board should have been the entity to say, yes, we're ready to proceed. I mean, probably even before it went to the other departments for their review. I would have expected that it came back through us with a final package of here's the proposal, here's what we're ready to pursue, here's what we're ready to do all of the detailed drawings on. And that's the step that never happened.
Hey, Matt, could I comment on that, please? This is Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would also say that is a breakdown on the staff's part. And one of the interesting things you said is, do other projects go like this? Well, the thing is, we don't have another board like you, like in Public Works. Okay, there's not a Public Works that it goes through. We have the Public Works Director, and he will put that together. And a good example is Griffin Road. Okay, he's brought that back to the council, and the council's looked at it several times, and then they see it as it goes along, and then he brings it back to the council with a bid, and they've seen that going along. The problem is here, well, not a problem, but what we have is you have a board here which is different than any other thing in the city. And what we should do is bring it back to you, just like what you said. staff should bring it back to you on an intermediate step and you keep looking at it before it comes back at a finished project. And you didn't see that. And now that we know we have your board there, staff should be able to do that. And I will track that through and make sure in future we do that. You're absolutely right.
And like I said,
Yeah,
I feel
and- sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do feel like that was more of a breakdown on our side. That's not saying that you guys, Vireo, did anything incorrectly there. That very much feels like a breakdown on our side in that respect.
Yeah.
Because I know, I felt like too, when we met in March and showed a schedule and timeline for the project, what we were anticipating, what would be included. We showed that rendering. We had some decisions for you on colors and textures. We showed this image, I think, and then the shelters as well. So my understanding that was, and at that time I think delayed that until you made a decision, or delayed going out to bid until you made a decision on the colors to be updated.
And I don't recall all of the specifics of that conversation, but I know that we as a board had never seen a final package of any sort on the final layout design, the cost estimate, any of that, which is that's a step that I feel like we're having to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, have some of the conversations now that we could have had at that point. It's certainly not ideal to be having any of these conversations after the bids are open. That's far from ideal, but that's kind of what I feel is, from my perspective, we're having to say, okay, let's stop a minute and back up and let's have some of those conversations instead of just glossing over them and moving forward with as it is. And we may end up with as it is the best way forward. That's entirely possible. But, I feel like it's our responsibility to make those evaluations and make sure of that.
Anything on the
I did not. I know what it was. I know exactly the drawing I'm looking for. It came from Kale before he left the architecture company. But the plan I submitted was the plan that showed a future concessions area. Because I know that they contacted Drew about it and we quickly talked about it and said, oh, we'll take that off, because they were having problems with the future concessions part. And then from then on, it was just a year-round restroom is what it was termed. There was no future concessions area. And that was brought up when they asked us for if we needed additional money due to construction costs. And that's when we changed and upped the request. I believe it was 18%, which was another 18% local match. And they said they didn't like the year-round restroom portion. And Drew and I talked about it and then said, well, we can still build a restroom. And then once you get it built, you can do whatever you want with it. We'll just make sure that we build it with that intent in mind. If you wanted to add 3 walls to one side of the building, that you could have a future concession area for the soccer. So if you want to modify whatever building it is, just keep that in mind. The long range goal was to get something so at least one side could be expanded and you could have some sort of very simple concessions served out of that building.
Question kind of stemming from the prefab. Have you guys ever designed or had experience with a year-round building that's only has utility chase heated and not the rooms themselves?
I haven't had any experience with those.
I mean, we're working with state parks now on like 6 projects. I could make a call to ask them what they do with some of their campsite buildings. They use.
It was a very intriguing idea from that's always one of the downfalls of having a year-round restroom open all winter is you end up with vagrant use of it and it becomes a campsite essentially. So that was a very interesting solution just to heat the chase and keep the utilities functioning, but not have heat in the rooms, in the stalls themselves.
We could definitely ask around on what people's experiences are with that. And what the state does to provide that type of facility year round.
And I would assume on the state side, they probably have a local presence enough that they don't have the same issue that I know that there's going to be community concern with our proximity to the interstate and somebody, that it's just going to become a shelter over the winter. So just trying to address that. Like I said, I thought it was a very intriguing idea. I had never considered that, but that's what they said their preferred method is. Anyone else have comments on LWCF? Does anyone object to pursuing references and dotting those T's and crossing those lowercase J's?
No, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
As far as checking the references, like who's going to do it? Like any of us, or are we going to get the references sent to us? Or
My assumption was that Vireo was going to do that. Is that an accurate assumption?
We typically would and do.
okay,
Yeah, I'll say the question I ask anytime I call references for a prospective employee is, would you hire this person again?
Always on the list.
That's always the most important one to me.
Yep.
All right, anything else on LWCF? Larry and Steve, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
All right, we will move on to bylaws. I sent out a version. Zach had replied to the initial email with the two versions that I had sent out prior or after following the last meeting that we discussed this. I sent out an updated version there a day or two later that added an additional section for how to handle recommendations for appointments. I think that's a topic that should be included. Does anybody have any additional topics or sections that we have not touched on in the bylaws that you think we need to address in there?
Matt,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say, in case everybody didn't know, I think everybody knows Zach is on vacation this week. He and his family up in Maine, and probably a lot more comfortable than we are here in central Missouri.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had sent all this out and he'll carry on for it, but I'm just sitting in for him now. And I'll get all your notes and everything and we'll go from there.
Okay,
So thanks.
Steve and Larry, I see a hand raised. Did you need something still?
I just wanted to make sure, Matt and other park board members, that you all didn't need anything else from us tonight. That we're done and we can hop off.
No, I believe you guys are finished.
Okay, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So backing up just a minute, does anybody have any other topics or sections that we need to address in the bylaws that you can think of right now? It seems like I had a
Hey,
couple more things on my notes on my desk, but I don't have those with me.
One of them was, I know we had discussed it. I didn't see it in there. If it's in there, I missed it. But about having information to our department head for the meetings, like a certain day prior to the meeting, and them having the agenda and information out to us, like 48
Yeah.
hours or 72 hours in advance of the meeting type of thing or something like that.
All right, let me track these changes here. Any other topics we're missing? All right, so I would suggest so as of the last time, Derek, you weren't on the board the last time we went through this. I think you and I, when I brought you up to speed on everything, went through these. Basically, we went through the entire bylaws, the sections that are highlighted in yellow. We decided just to, we weren't going to have an easy decision on them that night. So we just highlighted them and moved on for the time being, and to follow up on later. So my thought is we go ahead and address those first and see if we come to a consensus on those. Does anybody see a better, different way to do that? All right. Go ahead.
Are those two separate options that you've got there?
Yes, those are two separate line items there.
So we're figuring out which one. Okay.
No, these are, one of them is basically a simple majority. The other one is a 2/3 majority.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
the question here was the way that the original language had it written was from the total possible board membership. So a simple majority would be 5 members, even if we only had 4 on the board. So basically, if there are only 4 people on the board, we would be ineligible to have any votes. And the suggestion was made that we drop that instead of from the total possible membership to a majority of the current membership. Does that make sense?
That looks good to me.
So
Makes sense.
I think having thought about all of these over the past month or so, I think that is the better way to do it instead of, I mean, if you think worst case scenario, like we have no power on how many people are on the board. If a mayor and council decided to not seat people to, I mean, effectively hamstring us, like I said, just playing devil's advocate, worst case scenario, then they could do that. But at the same time, they can appoint anyone that they want to the board. So, I mean, I think that this is a better way of handling it myself, with the current board membership as opposed to the total possible board membership. Does anybody have concerns with these as written?
I'm good.
I'm good.
That works.
I'm gonna go ahead
Yeah,
and
I'm good with it.
unhighlight them. All right, the next one was basically action outside of a meeting. Josh made the suggestion at the last meeting to change it instead of at the president's opinion as it was originally written, change it to the city manager or the park superintendent's opinion. As I've thought about that more, I like it better as a combination of the two. Basically, it will take the park superintendent and the president both agreeing that it's necessary to do that outside of a meeting in order for it to happen. So either side could potentially stop it and say, no, we need to take this to a meeting.
I think that reads well, especially since you have to work together in order to be able to get that done. So.
So if we update this to include the combined opinion of the president and the park superintendent, is there anybody that's not comfortable with this language if we make that update?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think with both on there, yeah.
Okay, rather than spending the time to adjust that language, I'll make that edit and bring it back and we can see it as an update.
Okay.
All right, probably I'll do the same, building that section and bring it back. Let's see, comment. All right, this section, the vouchers for expenditures of funds. The way the law is written, it says that no park fund money can be spent without the properly approved vouchers. I did find elsewhere, again, I don't have that handy. I did find, I think it was a court decision that specifically said like a signed affidavit or something like that. It referenced essentially a signed purchase order from the park board being able to purchase anything. So that's a step that hasn't been taken, that we'll need to start doing. Then it comes down to what's the proper policy procedure from our standpoint on allowing those approvals. And essentially, in writing this, the goal was to mirror city purchasing policy and with the different steps, and it's basically, it doesn't actually specify any dollar amounts. It just references the council's purchasing policy, and that way we don't have to worry about dollar amounts. If they adjust their dollar amounts, it automatically takes effect on our side, and basically just cascades down through the different levels, approval levels, accordingly. I know the last time there was some concern on, let's see, if it gets down to the president acting without vote of the board on the director level, on the lower level purchases. I think the goal in, like on item B, for example, an amount for which the city manager has authority to approve directly, that would be, I believe, up to $15,000 according to council policy. That could either come from majority vote of the board or combination of the president. Well, we need to strike the finance liaison everywhere. We did away with that. So the president and 2 additional members of the board. And kind of a goal, in my opinion, there is streamlining functionality of the department. We don't want to have to put everything on hold for a month at a time just for approval of an expenditure that we expect, that we all know will get approved. So we just need to make sure we've got the proper sideboards in place for how we function with that.
That whole section that you had there on the, where the last financial liaison is just signature of one additional member. Is that it?
Well, that would be as I'm crossing out finance liaison, since we declined to include that as an office. This will be should we only have, should it be just up to the president, or should it be up to president and one additional? Or
I would like to have, yeah, at least maybe one other. I would say at bare
so
minimum.
that would read signature of the president and one additional.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one up here, get rid of president and finance liaison. So that one would be president and two additional members of the board on that one.
Yep.
Trying to walk that line between making it hard enough to where nobody can do something willy-nilly, and making it easy enough to where we can actually do something. Does anybody need more time on this? Have more thoughts?
I'm good.
I think the rest of it looks good to me.
Any objections to unhighlighting for now?
Nope.
Go ahead, good.
All right. This is the section that I just added. So this is the first time people are seeing this. Basically, it lines out a 3-month process for call for basically notification of vacancies, inviting applicants to the meetings and giving everyone on the board a chance to review, and then at another meeting, having the vote.
Yeah.
And the one question, so the council very recently updated their policy. My understanding, it was that request from the staff side on how they ended up with the update. So as I read the previous policy, anytime there was a vacancy, there would be a public notice made specifically for the vacancy. And the way that it happened in practice was, as like with our board specifically, we often have sufficient applications on file. So if there was already sufficient applications on file, they did not make a specific public notice other than the regularly recurring quarterly public notice. So this is in here as a, is it something we want to do that would go beyond the council's requirement, that would be an active public notice of any vacancy? Because I know from my perspective, if I see a notice in the paper saying come apply for a board, any board, that has a lot less effect than there's the specific opening on this specific board if anyone is interested.
I think there's an article in the paper today that specifies about the same thing.
I haven't seen that yet. I guess I think it's good to have active community involvement, and making people aware of the opportunities is a good thing. Derek, do you have any thoughts on this, having just gone through it from the other side?
You know, I don't have any really specific thoughts on it, but
Matt, so you're saying that potentially in May, if someone was vacating their position, it will be, unless I'm misunderstanding this, it wouldn't be until August or July?
No,
Until-
this is the third meeting prior to the last council meeting in May. So the council is required by law to make our appointments before the first day of June. So their last meeting in May is when they're supposed to be appointing new members. So you back up from there to April, March, February. It would be prior. Basically, we would start this process in February.
Okay, okay. All right. Figured I was not understanding that right. All right.
Yeah, you went forward instead of backward.
Yep.
do we want to be more specific? I'm looking at, would it be 25? The first section there, immediately following this meeting, the park superintendent will make public notice of any vacancy. Do we, or to the public, do we want to be more specific in how that will be notified out? Like, are we using social media, just the paper? Like, how are we putting that out there?
I don't know that that's necessary to get that level of specific. I mean, we certainly can if we want to. I guess I would, kind of what I was going for in writing it that way was thinking the same way that we announce meetings, you know, just the same way that we make notice of any other opportunity.
Okay.
And not putting specific guidelines on this is exactly what needs to be done. I mean, if it becomes an issue for some reason, you know, then we can certainly amend the bylaws to specify that.
Okay.
But my thought was it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
The sad fact is there would be more people alerted on social media than newspaper. I mean, we can do both, but
Yeah, I mean, I would assume in practice it would be both.
yeah.
And like you said, this is a living bylaw, so we can always adjust anything that
Yeah.
we see that isn't working.
And I have a feeling over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, there will be additions and amendments somewhat
Yeah.
regularly to this as we adjust things.
Yeah.
Different things come up that we didn't think of that we need to address, or things that aren't working the way we want them to, that we need to change, et cetera.
I mean, we've gone this far without any bylaws, so us approving this and having it, be a living document, I think we're good. This looks good to me.
Okay.
Do we like the idea of making an active notice on those? Like I said, that is now
I think-
different.
I think you're
standing
right.
council
I think we just leave it like you have it there and let's not get too specific on it just yet.
I guess I'm asking, do we like the idea of making this announcement in general versus not at all? Versus defaulting to the city policy of if there's already applications on file to cover the vacancies, we don't do anything and we just move forward with those or any word of mouth additions. I personally like the active call. Just, I mean, you never know what kind of good people are going to end up applying that wouldn't otherwise.
Well, from personal experience, you never know who might move into town that prior wasn't in town. So
Yeah. How's the new house going, by the way?
oh, no, it's going. We like it. It's a good move.
Man, I would leave that in there. I like that.
Okay. All right. Any objection to unhighlighting this and pulling it in as part of the draft?
Okay, if I could just clarify that, Matt. So what you're saying then is you will advertise each vacancy as they exist, not necessarily going with what the city has on file.
Correct. This specific item would be a deviation from the standing city policy that we would do in addition to. It would be anytime there is a vacancy, whether we have applications or not, there would be advertisement for said vacancy.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. So that we've gone through each of the highlighted items. I have a couple to adjust and to add. My thoughts are we call that good for tonight. I'll make those adjustments and send it out, and we can review everything at the next regular meeting and potentially finalize this sucker.
Okay, and can you send me a copy of that as well, Matt?
Yes, I will. I'll send a copy to everybody of this version as it exists right now. And then once I make those edits, I'll send an updated version also.
Sounds good.
All right.
Matt, thanks for all your hard work.
Not a problem. Happy to do it. I don't believe we have any new business, do we, Steve?
Well, I would like to add one thing if I could. And this is not new, it's old business. But the issue comes back, and the ladies were going to come in from the equestrian club and make some comments to you. And I said we have that on the agenda for the city council meeting on Monday, so they could make those comments there. But I think the issue is who is ultimately the trails and amenities of the lakes and north of 36, under whose purview are there? And the city council has been a little bit confused because we've gone through what amounts to an evolution. We had Public Works doing it when Drew Bondrag was here because they were the only ones that had the people and the equipment. Then we went through a period of time where we had it under the lakes because we had a lake superintendent, and now we have a lakes and parks superintendent. And I think there's some members of the council and the staff that would just like to clarify that. And so I'm not asking for a vote or anything. I'm just thinking what you're thinking. I'm thinking now that what we're saying is that the trails and park amenities come under the purview of the park board. Is that kind of what you're all thinking?
So from my perspective, that's the way I understood it from the beginning when we combined the I believe it was March of last year when we combined the Parks and Reservoir Superintendent position. That was my understanding from the beginning, is then the recreation side, not the utilities, the water itself, but just the recreation activities on the reservoir properties came through Park Board the same as the rest of the parks, was my understanding.
Yeah, I think there has been some confusion on that, but I would like to say exactly what you said. Now, I remember a previous Parks Board president sat in my office and pointed his finger at me and said, "We'll have nothing to do with anything north of Highway 36. Well, okay, I got that, but that's changed now. And I think we're saying that the Parks Board does have the purview of trails and amenities, but like you said, not the water and the electricity. That's still Water Department. But the recreational facility, I think it's under the purview of the Park Board, and it all should come back to you.
And I guess I would extend that a little bit. And I know, and they made that decision prior to my being on the board to wash basically the Park Board was offered the opportunity to be involved at the trails, and they declined for funding reasons. And like I said, that was prior to my being on the board. But in my opinion, the recreational trails, the recreation in general fits with parks a whole lot better than it does with utilities.
Yeah,
and that's the proper
oh yeah,
place
and
for it.
I agree with you, and I think maybe, and I'll talk to the council about it, and maybe just a resolution from the city council saying that, so it's in writing and everybody knows it, would be helpful. Then there's no confusion. Now,
And I would extend that just a little bit to say there is, particularly with the ADA trail and the most expensive portion of that trail yet to be completed, there is the issue of funding. And like part of the fix that makes this work is the dollars transfer from utilities to parks, essentially to allow us to manage utilities property. And so that's if we don't have unlimited funds, just like nobody has unlimited funds. So if funding goes away, our ability to manage those effectively goes away somewhat also. But I think that, in my opinion, it makes a lot more sense for that to sit with us than going up through utilities, just from a recreation standpoint.
yeah, I agree, and I think that makes the most sense. So let me take that one step further, though, because there is not unlimited funding or resources on anybody's part. So what happens is, many times you would come back to the city council and look for funding. And I gave you the example of that. And that was, remember, we were talking about the bridges over the spillway of Eagle Lake. And we talked about using perhaps some of the railroad cars. And, that kind of fell apart with last year's budget. But that's something that you would come back and you'd say, that's not in the Parks Board budget to afford. So can the city council then take that out of another fund to transfer to the Parks Board fund to do that? Yes, well, you could ask for that and see if they could do that, because there are some things that need to be done that you just don't have. So you ask and you would cooperate on those kind of things.
And specifically the big budget item that I would expect for, I would like for us to never have to approach the council and ask for additional funds. I would like for us to be 100% self-sufficient and not have to.
Yeah.
But in that realm, the one finishing the ADA trail is a budget item that I would expect that we would need to approach the council and see if we can come up with some way to do that, just because that's going to be a major expenditure that we certainly can't cover without sacrificing major parts of the future parks projects.
Right. And there's another piece of that, because while we're in this kind of transition phase, what we have is we have the grant for that. And there's a 50-50 match on that. And 50% of it is the paving that goes from the end of trail now down to Mr. Nance's corner. That still has to be paved, but the other half of it is a match that we're doing with in-kind services. Who's doing that? Well, that still goes back to Public Works. They're the ones they're going to get that ready to go. We could get a little bit of help from Neil and a couple of park people, but I think that match is going to have to be the in-kind services from Public Works because we're in the middle of it.
Well, and I'm talking about a theoretical next phase.
Yes.
The one that's currently going now,
Uh-oh.
I guess the way I see that is it was already approved and in the works prior to parks having anything to do out there. So I would expect that it would continue running through it, at least from the in-kind services, running through the Public Works side, the same as it was originally designed and approved.
Yes, that's what I would expect too.
And then the next application, we'll have to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, and part of that is when you go from council to council, you change your priorities. Last year's priority was their number one priority was lake trails and amenities. So we started a bunch of those things. This year, the council does not have lake trails and amenities on their agenda as a high item. So it may mean that will have to take a back seat a little while, and then it'll come back again and we'll work on it. And we can pick away at it by finding like, what are the options for that last phase of the ADA trail? What are the options? How much is it going to cost? We'll just keep picking away at it.
And I will say, since I've been on the board and prior to the park board having anything to do with the reservoirs, the number one question I got asked was, when are you going to finish that trail? When is the ADA trail going to be finished as a full loop? So there is a lot of public interest in having that done.
There is a huge amount. And of course, that last piece is the toughest and most expensive. And I don't think that cannot just be a park board issue. You're involved in it, and Public Works is involved, and City Council is involved in it, and the public's involved in it, and we'll just keep working on it. I get that all the time. And when there will be a lot more pressure on that as we back away a little in this next year, we'll see the public come back on that.
So you made the comment that since we're talking about that project, that the paving is not yet complete. What is the status on that project?
Yeah,
I've been intending to ask.
Yes, I think it was October. And I think that what happened was there was we had the period of time with the bats. You may know of that, but I think it was scheduled for paving in October.
Yeah, they did all of the tree clearing prior to the bat dates are April 1st to October 31st are the no felling dates. And they did all of the tree clearing prior to that, but that's not a restriction on paving.
I will have to go back out and see where that is right now. I don't know. But
Yeah.
We'll get that and we'll bring that back to you because we need to do that as soon as we can and at least get the paving out to that corner done.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks. I'll move forward with that same idea with the city council.
Is that something you expect to address with them this coming Monday, or will it be the following meeting? Or yeah.
I will try to bring that up as we talk about on Monday, we're going to talk about the equestrian trail. So I'll bring that back up again with them. I think the subject will come up there. I don't think it'll come up for a decision, but it will have this same kind of a discussion, I think.
Okay. All right.
I think the equestrian trail ladies will be in on Monday and they'll be asking for more stuff, more gravel, more paving, all of that, but they'll keep working on that.
All right. Any comments from anyone on the board?
Appreciate the chance to have our meeting on Zoom. I prefer an in-office one. And Robbie, you're making me dizzy.
Sorry. I have 3 girls that I was trying to
Take
feed
care of.
dinner
Okay.
and get them in the shower as well.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll send out the bylaws version that we worked up tonight. I'll send that out here this evening and then make those edits and send out an updated version for everybody. And that will be on the regular July meeting.
Okay. Okay.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
Okay.
everyone have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
too. Again, thanks.
Thank you all.